Hello everyone, this is William from the Duel Commander Rules Committee. I'm going to show you the contents of our 2024 panel. This is, as you might know or remember, a panel we started doing like 2 years ago. The previous editions are available on the website, they're recorded on YouTube, and that's where you should find this video. As for every year, we usually do this panel live in front of a French audience in the MTG Prime festival, which is actually some content that was destined to be published on the internet. It's just that we just give some form of exclusivity in French in a shorter version too. So this is the version where you're gonna hear me speak slowly, and I'm gonna take the time to detail the slides. We are kind of time limited when it comes to the physical versions of this. So because usually we hold a panel with questions and answer after that with lots of members from the Duel Commander committee. So that's why it does that. So usually this version is much longer than the version I do in French and in person. It's not that I speak slower, it's just that I take my time here, and that sometimes we have to be in a hurry when you're in a physical tournament and some limited time schedule is given to you. So what you're going to see is what exactly was presented to the people, modulo one part of this presentation that is going to be in the end, which is a part that I co-animated with the tournament organizer of the French Nationals and the MTG Prime League. So if you were not on site in French, I just pass the microphone and talk to this person, whose name is Guillaume Cailliez, is an incredible tournament organizer, and he just takes the lead for like 10-15 minutes this time, I think, to make a lot of stats about his league. So this is the mixed presentation, and I'm going to skip this part as it's not my part, but you will see that in the end I will just skip a lot of slides and move on to the last part of this video. All right, let's go. As I said, this is the third time I'm doing this exercise with you, and lots of things have been said. So the 2022 panel was just a quick recap and a pretty, so diplomatic introductory things to like how we should hold the panel. It was decided at the last minute. Slides were assembled a couple days before, and everything's on YouTube actually, and you find this on the website just like this. The 2023 was more insight, more data about where Magic the Gathering seems to be going, like a couple statistics about creatures, about sorcery, spot removals, about the power and toughness of the average creature, the ability density, lots of things that you find, and there are lots of things that you find in the end when I'm going to talk about these social networks and stuff that happen every year, all right? So last year we talked about the Magic Gathering, the trajectories that the game is taking. So in short, I'm just going to bypass this whole part in just one slide. I strongly entice you to watch the 2023 presentation. It's completely holding to what it is today. There's not a slide that needs to be retouched. If you extrapolate some of the data, which is what I did this year, you basically go and get the same graphs. Like there was barely a little less cards being printed in 2023 than 2022. That's the only difference. And the rest, the trends you've seen in the slides and the metrics are absolutely the same. So if you know what I'm talking about, it's fine. If you don't know, just pause this video and go to see the 2023 presentation and just consider it still fully valid. But now, there are a couple more trends I could address you when it comes to this year's talk. This year I wanted to talk about a few things. Let's start with that. This was used in our announcement recently. This is a graph of two cumulated data. The first one on the bottom here is the new prints, which is the first time a card is being printed and doesn't have the same name, functional things, whatever. It's one unique card that doesn't have an exact reprint. This just doesn't count the skinned cards that are really an exception. Okay, and then you got the new total prints, which is including also the new prints. Okay, so this graph is in front of this one. Okay, so what you see is that until 2009 there was somehow an oscillation between the first and the second, and it was something like 0.75. This is the right scale. Okay, the left scale is for the graphs. So starting 2009, what you see is that the reprints have been crushing the whole total things, even though there are more and more new prints too. So that's two things you need to note. There are more and more new cards, and there are more and more reprints, which is going to affect the economy, which we'll see in the end. There are lots of new legendary creatures. Let's talk about commanders. Commanders are supposed to be legendary creatures, right? So if we just select the legendary creatures over the years and we dispatch them, we break them down by rarity, you get this graph, and you got these curves regarding uncommon, rare, and mythic rare. There's just one common, it's not really worth understanding, and there might be actually more and more uncommons, and soon, if you look at this graph, we should have common legendaries, but let's not talk about it now. What you see is that there are more and more commanders to be played, because since 2011, when Wizards of the Coast created the commander out of the EDH, it was the third time after the whole Kamigawa set and the initial set of legends, the third time that there was so many legendary creatures pushed into the game. So this is something you need to keep in mind. Along the slides, I'm going to use MTG Top 8 a lot. What I wanted to address in the slides is a question of methodology. Is MTG Top 8 reliable as a source? Of course, there are many other sources. MTGDex.net, could be MTG Goldfish, could be some personal data from people and stuff like that. But actually, if you look at the statistics, what you see is that by the end of 2024, MTG Top 8 should be showing the results of over 1,000 events only for 2024, which would represent almost, if not more than 5,000 decks, which is starting to be quite a lot. And remember, there is a slice selection by MTG Top 8, which, according to the tournament size, only publishes the top 4, top 8, top 16, or top 32 decks of whatever event is to be. So that is actually a strong slice that shows really what is winning. Doesn't mean it's what matters, it's what is winning. Okay, so what I believe is that if you look from the bottom to the top, the growth of this website in both sides, in decks, in events, and also the geographical location of the events, is pretty accurate now. We just get tournaments from China, from Russia, from Canada, from Brazil, Philippines, the whole countries of Europe, like all of them. We got results even from Africa for the first time, which is great for us. Like, this is really something I do personally wanted to monitor. And it's so great that I think we covered a lot of continents and the top places where people play Magic the Gathering. So I do believe that despite all the biases, it's actually the best source of data we can get right now. So let's use it. If you go to MTG Top 8 right now, as of today, the end of June 2024, you would see that if you go to the very end of the last card that has appeared in just one deck, you get a total of 15.6% of the total non-land prints, which is about 27,500 cards, by the end of June 2024. Which means that you actually get 84.4% of the whole card pool out. When I mean out, it's out like this curve. It's just never played in the end. And the top cards are really more played than the bottom ones. This is just summed up on a total game card pool price that is increasing because there are more and more cards, and if you wanted to buy everything, you would just have to spend more and more money, okay? And the game card pool diversity is going down. We're going to see that in a minute. And that means that the additional discoverability of new cards is less and less probable, in which way I would like to say there is less and less probability that you find a new card that someone plays at least once and brings it to the MTG Top 8 retained slice of the Top X decks, okay? So what this means is that over the last 10 years, this hasn't really moved, but we only play a small fraction of the total of the cards. Like, of course, I'm not referring the weird commons that are stupid, that are played, not even played in draft or limited, whatever you want it to be. But what you see on this graph is it's been pretty consistent over the years. But remember, the card pool is increasing like crazy, which means the 80% of 2024 are 3 times more cards than the 85% in 2014, okay? So actually, we're not playing a lot of cards at the moment. If you just, this time, cut down to only the cards on MTG Top 8 that go over 1% presence, which means if you get a tournament of like 500 people, which is a lot, you would have, on the average, 5 people playing these cards in a deck, which is not a lot, including the possibility that I would even draw it. So 1% presence in all the cards, you just get this small number of 3.7%, which means if you only consider the 1% plus decks on MTG Top 8, they represent only 3.7% of the cards, including the lands. So this is even including the lands, which are really redundant across decks. And I wanted to show this graph because I wanted to put this in perspective. This means if you only consider the top 1%, remember, top 1% is not really called a metagame. I can tell you, me, you, anyone here, you have no idea what, let's just say, 50 cards are in the bottom 1%. You got no idea what these cards are. You know them, you probably sell them, but you got no idea what they are. I can think of you naming the first ones, the most played ones, like Lightning Bolt, Swords to Plowshares, Demonic Tutor, but the bottom 1%, you got no idea what these cards are. But still, even though they're completely unknown, they only represent, to this day, 3.7%, which is the number you got here on the right. But more appealing to this, if you look at this graph, even though the small fraction here is not really representative, I could have cut down to 25% to make a better graph, but I wanted to see how crushing it is. What this means is that if you look over the years, slowly with this curve here, the regression curve, polynomial curve here, you got something that says you are playing less and less of the cards. And remember, this is out of a growing pool, which means this pool is growing exponentially high in number, and despite this, we're playing less and less of the percent of the total cards. Okay? So, I've done this graph. I've just made a graph over the years where I cut down all the cards that were played more than 0.1%, more than 1% or equal to 1%, more equal to 10%, same for 25, and same for 50. What you see is that normally you would expect cards to go down because more and more cards get printed. So normally, if the pool wasn't moving, if the game was not being solved progressively, you would have this going slowly downwards, which is the case for the small 0.1% cut. We are counting this on a slower percentage of the total, okay? This is a ratio out of the total number of prints. So you might worry like, okay, this is fine. We are playing more and more cards because you have to go down to know how much it represents. But if you just take this over 1%, there's a difference. It starts over 10%, sorry. It starts going upwards. And if you go to 25%, it starts going even further upwards. And for the first time in history, last year, 2023, we had already 2 cards that were present in more than 50% of a deck. This is 1 deck out of 2. Remember, if I put this number on 100, it means the card is systematically present in all decks. And if I just raise this number to 100, this means that the top decks are made of only probably 100 cards or 200 cards. You see, that is not really what I would call diversity. So what I did is that I put that in perspective against all the time prints. Like the first graph was not against the all-time prints, and this is against the all-time prints. Please note on the scale on the left, this is a little complex. This is a logarithmic scale. This is not a linear scale, okay? So every time you go down one bar here, you don't go with the same scale, you just divide by 10, okay? So this is a dividing scale, which means if it was not, this would be a huge bump, okay? So let's see again. 0.1%, it's slowly going down. I think you can see it on this graph. Then 1% is going down as well, fine. Then 10% starts going down, but a little slower. And then 25% since the last year is stable, if not going up. And then you got the 50%, which just appeared. The last thing I did on this graph was I did this continuous line, which is I took the MTG top 8 top 100, I summed the percent, so this is a total of what we call percentage points, okay? The points are additioned one on top of each other. What you see is that until 2022, it was pretty stable and people used to brew with a lot of different cards. I mean, at least this was stable. Maybe a little too high, but it was stable. But now, even though we have more and more cards, so this should be crushed under the pressure of going down, it's going extremely fastly up. The ladder on the right is the sum, the scale on the right is the sum of points, which means it goes from 2,000 something to 300 and 500 something, 3,500 something. So we've got 150% increase in this number over the last 2 years. And remember, this is coincident with the first time we had cards played more than 50%. So what I did is that I wanted to know where is the breakpoint of this curve? What is the inflection point of this curve? And for that, I just added some different ways to play Magic the Gathering. So I added CEDH because it's the closest of what we do. We share so much with CEDH, it's crazy. We just make it single player and competitive where they don't necessarily do this. They have a way to play this with 4 people, 2 people. It's just a blurry thing, but what you get is that we report the tournaments on MTG debate, which is very interesting because we share a lot of the structure, not the purpose, but structure. Also, I did Vintage and Legacy for the pool reason and Modern because I wanted to see what Modern would do, because actually Modern is just going to be somehow an eternal format at some point. What you see here is that there is no real resolution of the game when you look at Legacy and Modern. It's just pretty stable. Like the top played cards are 40 something and 25 something. 30 something, I mean, which is somehow acceptable, okay? That's just, that's already a lot, but you could just ban a few cards. Like, look, this is only for the top 15 cards, and then it really goes down. What you see here is the difference it takes with just a couple of cards between Vintage and Legacy. This is just nothing, a couple tens of cards, okay? That are restricted in Vintage and that are completely forbidden in Legacy. When you look at these two lists, I mean, there's a difference, but out of the 27,500 cards, this is nothing. This is just 0.01% of the pool. This is nothing. This is insignificant. But only these small cards can change the whole game. Look at the two curves here. Look at how far they are until you reach this place where they share a similar pool, okay? Dual lands, fetch lands, whatever you want it to be. But at some point, it starts to melt. And you see, there's a nature in Singleton Commander that makes it always a little further above the original Magic the Gathering formats. Okay, so that is something you have to take into account. What I mean with that is the game progressively crushes what's been printing before. This used to be staples just less than 10 years ago. If you've been an old fart like I am and you've known these cards 10 years ago, you're like, where have this gone? Does that mean these cards are really bad? Or do we not simply have the time, space, and the card slots index to play this? What I mean with that is there is a progressive resolution of the game. So this is a complex thing to understand. I'm going to explain this really fast. This is a theoretical point, which means when you have a selection, a natural selection of what's the better, the stronger into a pool of items that you have to select. It takes a lot of time and tries, which means people have to, Magic the Gathering related, select cards, build decks, play decks, realize which part of the cards and the decks have been betraying them, always bad, always good. It takes a lot of time. This selection process seems crazy for one brain, but it's getting there actually. So what happens is that at some point the player experience becomes challenging when you got tournaments and stuff. So people just start eliminating by exfoliating from the back. They just remove the leaves of the tree. They just realize they somehow build a pyramid which order is not determined yet, but they know that they can certainly remove the bottom cards because they really never played by no one, and at some point they're out. Then there are new elements in the pool, which is for example when Wizards of the Coast prints new cards. So the pool increases, which means you have to take into account everything that was done before, and you have to reset this to some place around here, when you still have to challenge back again all the cards previously eliminated. Because you don't know, something could be bad, something could be very bad, and then at some point, thanks to a new combination of cards, boom, it's good. Think about I don't know, the Strixhaven, Planeswalker, and Mage that trigger when you that drain life when you copy or cast a spell, and the older target player discards 2 things. You know what I mean? These 3 cards all together were not supposed to happen like that, and at some point, boom, it becomes something again. And you get this discovery every time something happens. Every time something happens, you got the chance that you should rediscover the older cards. But then what happens is that you keep going downwards again because no new elements are here. But the fact that there are new elements helps solving this faster and faster, because now you got more items. If the items are low, it's fine. If the items are on the top, you eliminate everything faster. And at some point, you got what we called an acceptable player experience again. And what happens with Magic the Gathering, where Wizards of the Coast keeps printing cards, new cards most of the time, the new cards put us into some oscillation between this state on the left and this state on the right. Okay? But there's a thing that when you talk about algorithmics, we call completion, which means running the whole possibilities and every single branch and every single possible angle that the algorithm should attack the problem. That means when you've completed everything, you're done. When you go to Google Maps or Waze and you ask for a destination, you say, I want to go there. It gives you, within a couple tenths of a second, the whole directions to go, the whole roads to follow, the whole exact path, the limited speeds, the one-way streets, everything is fine. And you can do that by feet, by walking, taking your car, your train, whatever. Is it always the best path? No, it's not. But it's just something that is so acceptable, it probably never goes wrong. It's something like this, like the 96% better path. And sometimes when it hesitates, it tells you, well, I found 2 or 3 different roads to take, and it's up to you. I don't know which one is the best one, but here are some different roads you can take. And if Google always wanted to give you the perfect, absolute perfect path, it would probably take hundreds of years of computation for your single journey. You know, you would just need a couple hundreds of years to determine which one is the absolute better destination way to take, okay? Your travel roads, trains, buses, streets crossed by foot, whatever you take it sometimes would take hundreds, if not thousands of years to be calculated. Do we need to do that? No, because at some point you got what you want. It's going to an acceptable optimum. So what we have here in algorithmics is called a global optimum, which means you found the final complete solution to your problem, and there's no way, depending on your algorithm, that something could be found better than this. And a local optimum means when you look at some position in time, you find an acceptable range that you want to analyze, and you just run the values through this range, and you say, I don't know what's beyond this range, but at least within this range boundaries is correct. It's what we call a local optimum. The thing is, when you consider the thousands of Magic the Gathering cards, and when you consider the millions, billions of billions of billions of billions of combinations of cards, and when you add the billions of billions of billions of billions of billions of billions of possible gameplays, including the fact that people will rule correctly the cards, get a correct vision of the things, and get 100% feedback that it would be valid, if no mistake was made by the people being the population testing values, we don't know how long it would take, because a game of Magic the Gathering actually takes a lot of time. So if you wanted to sum that, maybe AI would do that. I do believe firmly that it's going to happen at some point. Do we have this yet? More than probably no. I wouldn't be so sure within the next 10 years, but right now, it's fine. So the question is, if you want to solve this human-made, do you need to test all the possibilities? No, because we already know how many of the cards are useless. And we've seen in the previous graph, we already eliminated over 97%. Which means we are not really testing the millions, billions of billions of billions of games. We are just testing a small fraction, which is already billions of billions. But yet, the more people you have, the more tests you do, the faster you will solve this. The question is, as you go here, you want to run towards what we call an asymptote in mathematics. And this asymptote can be found, but you have no idea how long it's going to take. What I mean is the number of steps it takes to go from here to here to here to here is growing exponentially. Actually, it's growing polynomially, Ren. So what the thing is that you start by just eliminating things within days or months, and at the end, I got no idea what the unit of time should be. I think it's probably millions of years. Okay, so there is probably one deck that just beats everything on the average more than anything else in Duel Commander. But you keep having new cards added, and finding this deck is probably never going to be found until we have ways to determine absolute better local optimum that are way more satisfactory than anything else. Okay? So what I mean with that is the more complex the game actions are, the slower the resolution goes. The more complex the game rules are, the slower the resolution goes. So the game items get successively eliminated from the bottom. I mean, the worst of them just get eliminated. The top remained. Not that does it mean that the top ones are good. You don't know, but they're still good enough to stay. And then you got this mesh predation that accelerate the process from the top. And new items can be added of equal power, which means they're going to weighten the nth weight of their correct positions with the other ones, the functional ones. Or the new item will accelerate the process if they are of superior power, okay? So the more items range from the bottom to the top, the faster it happens. And what it means also is what I just told you, the pace of change asymptotically decreases towards what I call stasis, which is at the end nothing changes. Unless the pool changes, in which case it's solved even faster. So the global optimum right now, we have no idea when it's going to happen and what it looks like. And the local optimum is the last concern we have. This local optimum is when will Duel Commander become a boring experience and a non-creative experience. What I mean with that is that as long as there is power creep as we saw last year and the cards are better and better and better and better, how long until these have to become fair again? Are you certain that these cards here are completely unfair and will already forever be unfair? I can tell you, you got no idea how long they're gonna hold. Because, for example, if you just allow the first 5 ones on the top here, for instance, let's just throw it random. Do you really care about the 5 bottom ones, or vice versa? I can tell you, Time Twister in a game where you can play Black Lotus, Time Walk, Channel, Dig for Time, and Mana Drain is the least of your concern. It might happen, but you will have a lot of more problems, okay? What I mean with that too is that how long they're even outdated, like overcome, like what prevents you from building better cards? You know what common points these share usually is they are restricted or banned in Duel Commander, but also most of these are old reserved list cards. The thing is, when these cards were added to the reserve list, they were supposed to be broken and speculation material. But are you sure out of the 527 cards on the reserve list that none of them have been outpassed? Do you really think like Jusum Jin, which is very emblematic, is such a good card today? It is not. It's barely a common level. So be careful. You never know how long things are going to remain. What I mean with that is whatever your game is, people will always try to hack it. They will just not play it for the fun. At some point, they will try to say, I want to win. And I want to win more. I will succeed in winning if I'm given enough time to do so. Okay? And also, if there's a competition, if there is money at stake, if there is a social take, which means I'm the name of the person who won this tournament. So I have some personal interest. And if also you keep adding more and more people, throwing samples and creating games, creating decks and testing, you are eliminating not cards one by one, but 100 at a time sometimes. This goes very fast. So I wanted to show you an illustration. This time, we're gonna focus on commanders, all right? You just remember what I said. This is a graph that says this is today, and this is on the bottom right, today, from right to left. And this is in months old for cards, for the first print. And this is the popularity, which means how many cards are on MTG Top 8, okay? These are commanders, command zones only, okay? Fine for you? So this is 2007. What you know is if it was really diverse, you would have the same number of distributed bubbles across the graph from left to right, and there will be also a lot of bubbles in every single point on everything else. The absolute diversity is what, wherever the bubbles are, they should be all on one line, okay? The more the spread is from bottom to top, the less diverse it is. The more it goes on one side of the graph only and not spread across, the less diverse it is. This is 2016, all right? Barely 8 years ago. What I want you to show, what I'm going to show you and what I want you to focus on is, look at this graph. I'm going to transition to 4 years later in time, 2020. This is 2020. What you see is that despite a small fraction here that is increasing diversity, everything seems to be going slowly to the right. Nothing is in this quadrant here, and it's going to the top here. But what if we just go to today, after 6 months of 2024? Look at the graph. This is today's graph. This is a whole half of the year. Everything has disappeared here. There's nothing else here. We're only playing what is new, and we're only playing a couple decks here. Sometimes people like to reflecting this by calling out tiers, like tier 1 and tier 2, 3, whatever. There should be only tier 1, the rest doesn't impact anything, but tier 1 is the correct name, the rest doesn't imply anything, but this is probably what we call tier 1, okay? And what you see here is that we only play whatever is really young. This is barely 1 year and something old, and the rest has completely disappeared, all right? So, moreover, if I wanted to use the ternary classification of MTG Top 8, which, let's wait a minute, I do not agree with this classification. I have never agreed with that. I have never used the word aggro, aggressive, controlling, combination, combo for years. I'm using these words to qualify a game action, but not to qualify a deck list. Okay? I have different words for deck list. They are not clear. I don't have a replacement for that. I know you would like to define that. I might write an article later on, it's not the problem, but it's very complex. What I can tell you is, if you don't have a precise and consensual way to classify decks, you're not going to be consensual with all of people. What I know, on the opposite, is that MTG Top 8 has been pretty stable and pretty consistent in classifying the decks. So this is what I wanted to show on this graph. If you look at this graph, whatever you see here is that even if you show that to someone who's like a good person in statistics and who doesn't know what a magic card is, they would tell you, okay, this is years, so 2024, by the year 2030, 6 years ahead in time, this will reach over 80%, 85%. This would be like 10%, something like that, and this would be 1-2%. In other words, if I put this on the 100% stack graph, and we've got only 2 regression lines because the regression for combination is over the graph here, what you see is that what we call aggressive decks is just completely eating everything. If you don't know why, I suggest you make a pause here and you go back to the 2023 presentation. You will understand a lot and very fast the stakes, the commercial stakes, and the game design stakes behind that. And moreover, when we created Duel Commander in 2007, there was only products designed for standard. There was nothing else. Nothing else. Yeah, I mean, if you're young enough to play Magic, since this period, you have to understand there was nothing else. Eternal only product did not exist, and Modern did not even exist as a game format. It was just introduced in 2015, I think. So what you see right now is that out of MTG Top 8 on a whole semester, the standard product line represents barely 50%. It's 49 something percent of the total commanders. Which means now we get to play commanders that were designed by the editor especially to be played as commanders, which is changing the way the game works. And actually, if you just look at exactly where they come from, what kind of product, what I did here is that commander products are commander decks. You get the Horizons, which includes Lord of the Rings, by the way, too. We also have Plane Chase decks here. We have Conspiracy decks here, and the Secret Lair special editions that you buy on the internet, all right? So what I did with that is that if you realize right now how this is going, I can tell you this commander wheel is just eating slowly the main line. This is just going down in value, and at some point it's going to disappear. What I told you is that this is a 2023 slides. Long time ago, we had Magic, on top of which we had EDH, on top of which we had Commander, which means we created the rules of Duel Commander on top of what Magic material was found. But now we have a problem, because Commander is now a game format by itself instead of being an external game. It's now a format, and it's still something that underlied the foundations of Duel Commander. We kept the vocabulary, we kept the commands, and we kept everything to be working the same. We used the same vocabulary that Wizards of the Coast uses for Commander. And the problem is now, the new cards and the new way of judging and killing the rules and stuff is getting on top of Duel Commander. So what we do is just wait for something to explode, hoping will not happen. If you want to talk more about resolution, I also did a whole part of the talk last year in 2023 with complex system dynamics, which is you will need to realize how this part of the graph works, and it's complex. You can, just like every complex system dynamics schema, you can take the schema yourself and make it better. This is normal. It's not intended to be perfect reflection on reality. All right? So when it comes to player experience, the only question that matters to you is that really a good player experience? I don't know. What I can tell is that we are both commander and competitive. Commander is extremely creative. So is this progressive resolution a good thing for creativity? Certainly not. But Commander is not really competitive. Duel Commander is. So is this good for competition? Somehow, it's good for people who want to have an identified and clear metagame. They want to read what is inside the metagame, how to hack it, and how to win tournaments. So, It depends on what kind of person you are and what you intend to play with. Okay, if you want to have a permanent mid game of 5-6 different decks, like you have in standard, in modern, or whatever, this is bringing an experience that's going to be close to it to you for Duel Commander. If you want anything else, if you want to play your good old commanders, if you want to try to grind and win a tournament with a really interesting rock decks, it's going to become harder and harder over time. That's what I would call personal interpretation in player experience. All right. So I wanted to give a few insight this year. Lots of people ask how you joined the DC committee. So the Duel Commander committee is part, this is a reminder I said every year, of currently 18 people. The total have been 46 over time since 2007. So we have 3 core members, which is the panel of core members. Which one is the people who take the decisions and just generally decide for everything. The advisors are here to just provide insight, ideas, and suppositions, opinions, feedbacks on lots of things. Regional coordinators are here to also do the same, but they have regional geographical linking through the globe. And there's one technical advisor who's here to make sure that everything works and people can talk together, we can have websites and stuff like that, and this is me, okay? So usually what you have is that this is how things work. You just got this core member thing, and then you got the people gravitating around the core members. So when you want to join the committee, you need to have qualities, personal qualities. And the thing is, there is a strong distortion between that some people, some leader of opinions in communities can tell, and some people can think, innocently, and that some people actually need to be told. So first thing you need to have is ethics, which means I'm not even going to tell, you know what ethics is, and you need to have this all through your life. This is actually not really for Duel Commander, which means just be a good person. If you're not a good person, it's probably not a good start to join the committee. Then you need to have teamwork abilities, which means you need to be able to work with people. That is a lot of problems that we have. Sometimes we need to communicate, we need to talk to each other, self-organize and do some things. Then you need discretion. You need to be someone who doubts of themselves. You need someone who just probably, just waits for things to happen and doesn't mean to brag out too fast and too high. You need to have a pretty good game sense, in general game sense, like you like playing. Not really Magic the Gathering, actually, just whatever. If you played a lot of games, it's actually great, okay? Especially trading card games and stuff. Then you need to be loyal. There's the committee is the source of authority. We are, in other words, the law and the police, and you have to behave correctly, which means you have to be loyal to the institution. Otherwise, it's going to start being a mess because we don't have a company, we don't have a recognized organization. We purposely do not do that because we want to remain like a movement and just people who make the rules. If you like the game, play the game, take the rules as them. If you don't like the game, just don't play it, okay? You need to have some discernment as well. We need to be able to tell the truth from the false, the important from the not or less important, stuff like that. Of course, you need to have some affinity for Duel Commander. You don't need to be an avid player. You just need to know the rules, the history, how it works, where it's played on the planet, and stuff like that. You need to have a global MTG knowledge, which means, of course, if you don't know how MTG works, it's going to be a little harder, but yeah. And you need to be able to monitor what is happening throughout the globe. It could be new cards, could be tournaments, could be IDs, could be these different formats and stuff. Okay, so you need to be informed, generally speaking. When you want to be a core member, you have to have a little more than this. You have to have, first of all, an absence of personal interest, which means you need to be linked with nothing. You need to have no relationship to what is outside the committee, like mostly to something that would be introduced to the committee and toxic. You also need to have an absence of personal quest, which means you cannot say, I joined the committee because I wanted to change XYZ. This is not going to be a good idea, as this firstly goes against democracy and goes against teamwork. You also need to have something that says, I want to join the committee because I want to be shiny and chrome in front of everyone. I want to be recognized. This is not the good place for that. You cannot join if you cannot accepting being wrong. For instance, I myself have been wrong many times, never went against anyone, and I've always recognized when I was wrong, and I barely had very strong opinions because I'm not really sure of myself, and most of the cards I've been playing with, the top spoiler cards and stuff, have been banned over time. I'm still here, I don't give a fuck, I'm still working for this committee. So do the same. If you don't do the same, if you cannot do the same, just don't join. It's not for you. You need to have good game design abilities because rules do not exist forever. Everything is changing fast and you might need to adapt to that. Then, just like we did in 2022, with the multiple objects in the command zone, known as the partner rule or whatever you want it to, the partner freeze rule, okay? The partner swap, etc. Then you need to have general gaming knowledge or DC expertise more than anyone else. Like this time you need to know what Duel Commander is about, you need to know the rules, how it works, you need to know metagame, you need to know a lot of things, okay? You need to understand what the people are doing with Duel Commander, not what you are doing. You need to know what everyone is doing, okay? You need to be resistant to manipulation, to bribery and stuff like that, because of course, the fact that we are very close to the community is a problem, which means we are considered just like players and cool people, and sometimes people want to be cool instead of us, sometimes people just want to make sure their opinion is not just heard, but like really used for something, like it's just not really a whole discussion only. Sometimes people want just more. You also have to be patient. The average decision we take, I cannot tell you how long it's going to be, but I think some decisions have come to up to 2 years between the time they were first raised and the time they were acted in an announcement. So you have to be very patient and you need to have insight. If you're too close to the game, if you're too close with your nose right into the games on tournaments or whatever, you might miss a lot of things, a lot of the human aspects of things. You might actually pretend to be someone who's very concerned, but you want to you might introduce biases into your thoughts, and this is really hard to avoid. And of course, you need to have democratic and discursive abilities. You need to talk with the rest of the committee, you need to talk with the rest of the people, you need to be able to rationally explain your decisions and stuff like that. So it's complicated, and sometimes you're working with a team and you're the only person who thinks a certain way. Or sometimes you are just not really a majority. So you have to accept that. As long as something is not clear for everyone, it means there is a problem. If you want to be regional coordinators, you need to fill in some untracked area presence, like China for now. We don't have anyone in China. We could need someone who can speak from China and tell us what does China mean. So how is it? What do people know about Duel Commander? Because it seems there's a lot of presence here, okay? So you also need to have a localization, which means you need to speak the language of the place you go to, and of course speak English at the same time, because we only speak in English internally and externally. You need to have an overwatch, another view of what the local MTG scene is like when it comes to modern, when it comes to standard, pioneer, magic online, whatever you want it to be. If people around you play this, you need to be able to tell the stories, okay? You need to have an online and offline social presence. Of course, you need to have what we call a global vision and a local action, which means you need to consider the whole world. You're not here to defend your area. This is completely stupid. You're just here to represent what the people are inside and say, this is what I mean, but not when I think personally. You have to be transparent and say, I gathered with the least biases I could, the people's opinion around me, and I need to locally tell the people what the committee is about. Translate the announcement and stuff like that. You need to have strong reporting abilities too, and you need to also be involved somehow. Like you need to probably, I don't know, visit shops, visit tournaments, visit people who play it up, visit organizations. You need, maybe you're a tournament organizer yourself. Okay, that's very good for this role. If you want to be an advisor, usually means you got some peak knowledge or skills that not necessarily is about Duel Commander or even Magic. You can be an advisor and know nothing about Magic or close to nothing. For some reason, this is what you could join here. You could be, for example, not an avid player, but someone with a lot of insight. Usually we make people join as advisors because they've got a very good profile and understanding of some things that are not really included or fully covered, like some guy, some person who just really knows what they do, what's happening into a very special domain that somehow could be useful to the committee. Okay, so this profile are usually transverse, and they are like, this is the perfect role for outsider abilities, like something not necessarily Magic, could be Magic, but if you are a very good player, a very good tournament organizer, a very good judge, and you got a lot of share to do, a lot of sharing, a lot of history, you really implied and you love Duel Commander for some reason, this is exactly the best role for that. And then, there's my role. I could actually divide this role into several, but you need to be very at ease with digital. You need to understand how everything works, like networks and stuff, websites. You need to be able to understand the web, how it works and stuff. You need to be able to improvise, organize, and change everything from yesterday to tomorrow, like you're going to see in this announcement too. You need to have a little statistics, so you can just provide with spreadsheets, some formulas, some maths, whatever you want it to be. Be able to overwatch the technology, like if there's something that changes, like, I don't know, social networks and stuff, you need to be able to set that up, and you need to be able to stand with the committee on some things that people might not be at ease with, okay? And also you need to be autonomous, and you need to be able to coach your team and make sure that everything remains fluid, that silence doesn't install, that people still talk to each other. You want to call, you want to talk, you want to be in the talks, you want to help people discuss each other, and you want to be a facilitator, actually. That's what I consider myself sometimes. So if you want to join the committee, when there are two possibilities. You can be a volunteer or a prospect. The volunteer is someone who contacts the committee. The prospect is someone that's contacted by the committee. Okay, so you get a series of feedback usually, and you say yes, no, maybe. So we get your initial will to join or not the committee. Then this is also reported to the core members, who sometimes designate someone who just interviews the people. Then we've got a core member. Not really a vote, it's just a mutual agreement. Like, is this person pretty good or pretty bad for an edition? What are they going to bring to the committee? Are they going to bring something new? Then we got this decision. The decision is made most of the time public to the people inside the committee. Then you usually somehow agree to a non-disclosure agreement. This is nothing of a strong or significant rights or jurisdiction value. This is of no value. We just tell you, please don't do that. And then we create the accounts and stuff that you need to join. We integrate you as part of the committee. We make a public post a few days, weeks later on. We just want to not link the public joining and leaving people with the announcement, because they have nothing to do with announcements. And then you can leave whenever you want, and there's no proper process for you leaving. It's up to you to say, I really want to leave, I want to stay for a couple of days. It's up to you, okay? You do whatever you want, but you have to be loyal to the committee. So this year, I've added a little analysis on the top Duel Commander card pool. So, in addition to MTG Top 8, I've used money considerations. For that, I use Card Market. I considered that a card would be on card market something that is better than poor, because it's played in plus. Because poor sometimes is broken into, it's not really valid, and a judge could say, this card is, I'm sorry, it's not legal for a tournament. I'm excluding the weird prices, like if you got the sample prices like 2.5, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 1, and 2. This 2.5 is extremely weird and probably suspicious. If I wanted to use a time source, I used the last 6 months, the first semester of 2024, and when it comes to defining a rarity, I've chosen the last paper presence in a randomized product, because as you know, some cards have very different rarities. Some cards have actually been printed in 4 different rarities. The product line I'm taking is the first paper presence, same thing in a randomized product, okay? The color breakdown, I chose not to use the color of the cards when it comes to the Magic version, but I chose to use color identity instead. It's just changing a little things. Not most of the cards are not concerned, but I think it's more accurate for Commander to use color identity instead of the color of the cards. Then I cut the pool to, as you know, Magic Top 8, 1% and plus total given periods, and I grouped the product, like I said before, in Modern, Commander, Battlebound, Conspiracy, Planchase, Jumpstart, Fun, Universes and Beyond, and everything else goes to mainline, okay? And when I want to measure how old cards are, I want to use months. Alright, let's go. So this gives us, 2 weeks ago, a pool size of 1,027 cards, which is a total of 4,726 cards on Magic Top 8, okay, MTG Top 8. So the average presence was 8% and the median was 3.8, which indicates already that the top cards are weighted and played much more than the rest of the cards. Then I looked at the prices and I said, how much do we need to spend poor plus, over poor, which is played plus, to buy the whole pool of 1,027 cards. So the whole pool is about 6,100 euros on card market by the time I did so. The top 500 is only 4,500 versus 6,600 3 years ago and over 10,000 5 years ago. The average is 0.3 euro and the median is 5.9 euro. Okay, same thing, the prices is really, but you already know that distributed weirdly in Magic. There are a little cards which cost a lot and most of the cards cost nothing. The minimum is just rounded down to 10 cents. We could actually go lower, but I just decided to round to 10 cents. The card market does go below 10 cents, but you consider an average pricing with shipments and, you know, this kind of additional fees. And the maximum card was worth 450 euros. Out of the first 1,027 cards, okay? So when it comes to time, the average card is 132 months, actually, which is 10 years and 11 months. And the median age is 87 months, which means you see here how much we are playing new cards, much more than older cards. That's a strong difference, okay? That's a third difference between the average and median. So when you look at the dates, the median first print is 2017, while the average first print was 2012. Do you realize that of 30 years, that 5 years is 1/6 difference? Okay, this is a lot of difference. So here I put the graph with all the cards. Yes, this is a graph with 1,027 cards. It's pretty hard to read, but what you see is that the further it goes on the right, the more expensive it is, and the more it goes to the top, the more play it is. So what you see is that it's pretty reasonable, holding below whatever is 50 euros a card, and there is like somehow 13, 15 cards that go over the top. But these cards are not really played more than 25% actually. So, okay, this is the representativity in on MTG Top 8 in the y-axis, okay? And this is, again, discarding weird prices. What you see is that what costs you the most is what comes from the main line, which is somehow expected, as it also includes, like, Alpha, Beta, Revised, Unlimited. And then you've got modern cards very, very far behind, and then Commander, and the rest is not really costing you anything. Okay, which means if you wanted to get all the cards from Plane Chase, Conspiracy, Battleborn, Jumpstart, Funds, and Universes and Beyond, and play all the cards that are more than 1% in Duel Commander, this would just cost you nothing. Okay? But now, if you look at the most influential sets, this is appalling to me. You've got Limited Edition Alpha on the left, and you've got Outlaws of Final Junction on the right. I did not include Modern Horizons 3, even though it's going to change a lot, because it was just out 1 week before I made this graph, so there was nothing significant. It was somehow visible on the graph, but I said, all right, let's just keep that for later. And you're gonna need why to understand why, because Limited Edition Alpha has everything. It has everything. The top played cards, Lightning Bolt, Source to Plowshares, are already more than a third of this bar by themselves. The 10 original dual lands, but so many things like Wall Growth, Counterspell, it's just everything is in Alpha, okay? Alpha is so far almost unbeatable. And this is the second editions that you see. So you see the editions with the fetch lands, and Zendikar also has Spell Pierce and stuff like that that really count for something. So this is about fetch lands, which are the top played lands after Command Tower. And then you've got the 3 Modern Horizons and stuff, the modern only legality sets, starting with Modern Horizons 2 that almost reaches the same popularity as Limited Edition Alpha. And then you've got Lord of the Rings and Modern Horizons, the first one. And for some reason, if you wanted to add one, Neon Dynasty has brought a lot of cards between 0.1 and 1 to 5%, which is really good, like the land cycles, the other land cycles and stuff. It's pretty good. So this is how influential these sets are, and you can see that Modern Horizons, the modern sets, are crazily booming, like they are crushing everything else. If you just add these 3 bars on top of each other, this means the whole graph would be close to invisible, even Alpha. All right, so this is really important to realize. Okay, this is another perfectly unreadable graph, but you're gonna find it interesting. What you have here is the 1027 cards on the graph, with the representativity this time on the x-axis and the price on the y-axis. So the more the cards are on the top right quadrant, the less we should have them, because it means you would need them and they would be expensive. Okay, please be careful. This is a logarithmic scales. Okay, this is 0, euro, 1, 10, 100, 10. Okay, so every bar you see on the y-axis is plus 10% of the total of what's the upper bar. Okay, so what you see is this is pretty non-considered. This is kind of cheap. This is rather cheap. Then this comes really not cheap, and this is really not cheap anymore on the crop here. So what you see is the first cards that are really, really needed is the ones that should be in a circle on the top right. Force of Will, Orcish Bowmasters, Demonic Tutors, Solitude, the Fetch Lands, Prismatic Vista, which is a play Fetch Land 2, all of this, and probably Volcanic Island are the cards you cannot avoid. If you have to play these colors, you would play these colors here, okay? So what I did too is that I want to check what the original rarity of the cards was. So to determine that, I only chose the rarity of the last randomized print. Okay, so this means that I'm using the latest okay-ish rarity of cards. What you see here is that we are playing mostly, and I mean mostly if not close to only rare cards. Rare cards represent like 55% of the total cards we play. And then we've got the basic land rarity, which is almost not played, which is, as you know, only the 6 basic land types. And then we've got a pretty good share between commons, mythics, and uncommons. Okay, so that is out of a lot of decks. Like this is on over 3,000 decks. Okay, something that I found interesting too is to check the color identity. So I checked the color identity of this 1027 cards, and what you see here is that blue and red are the top. They are shared with very close to each other presence. This is actually oscillating season after season. Sometimes red is just a little more, sometimes blue is a little more, but they are very close to each other. Like blue and red are 21% each on the average. They just oscillate, and it keeps sometimes, like last year red was a little more, blue was a little less. It just keeps the same, still remains the same. And then you've got 17% for black and white. Then you've got 10% only for green and 12% for colorless color identity. Okay, that's pretty weird. It's definitely different from the 30 life totals we had in 2016, where if you remember, blue and red was about 30%, 35% of each, and then there was almost nothing left for other colors. So green seems to be a little left behind, but this is due to structural reasons we cannot really fix. Then the question was, if you wanted to count the population of these 1,000 cards, what are they? So what you see is that the vast majority of them are creatures, 32%, and this is increasing. If you know the 2023 presentation, you can see this is increasing, okay? Then we've got lands, which is not really going to move, even though lands is really slowly decreasing. It's not going down to 0, but lands have lost 2 to 3 points over the last years. Then we've got instant, then sorceries, enchantments, then artifacts, and then planeswalkers. And for the latest years, we have the new type battle that's just appeared in this graph for the first time. All right. Now I did this graph differently. I took this graph and I multiplied the presence by the average presence by its type. So I counted how many times lands were present in the total, which is a multiplication of the top decks multiplied by the number of cards. So on the average, the intensity this times falls into lands. Lands are just the most intense and important card in Duel Commander. This time, followed by creature, just followed by instance. Just followed then later way down below by sorceries, and then the whole rest. Which means what matters in Duel Commander is to have lands, then creatures, then instants. And as we saw last year, those instants are mostly here to be spot removal and one-to-one answers, which is not really helping the game strategy. Now, about the price again. What I did say is I'm going to use the presence of the cards, which means how many time they're present in deck, with a cross of their cost. So what you see here is that what costs you the most globally is to play blue and black. Very close to each other. Again, these things are moving from year to year, but very close. They remain almost the same. Then green is the most expensive after this, but it's way below. And then you've got red, then white, then the colorless. Okay. Yes, this includes the dual lands and stuff like that. So this doesn't have any unit. It's a multiplication of the presence rate by the prices. Okay. And of course, the values are included several times. Like if you have Druid Arbor, which is a creature in the land, it's counted in both columns for the people who would like to know. Then what I did is calculate the card pool rarity intensity breakdown per color identity. This is probably one of the strongest graphs to understand. What I did here is I just broke down everything by color, then I broke down into rarity, and then I multiplied by the price. So what you see here is that, as we saw, the rares are the most played cards. They close to share the same price. The average rare is just the same price. Green is really cheaper when it comes to rares. Then what you see too is that the commons in blue are really more expensive than the rest. This is due to the fact that blue is going down at being what blue is the best about. Wizards of the Coast is pushing blue outside what blue used to be and be able to do. If you look at the top blue cards right now, they are really older cards, they are really more common cards, like counter spells, like miscalculations and stuff like that, and brainstorm, ponder, preordain, and stuff like that. Okay, so the top played blue cards are almost exclusively commons and rares. Okay, then uncommons are pretty good. They're pretty shared in terms of prices. There's nothing to say about that. And the commons, if you play white and green, are really less expensive than the rest. Okay, so that's interesting. I didn't stop there. What I did was also this time count how many cards were in each section. So this time is not a rarity intensity, this is just a number of cards. So how many cards are into which rarity of which color. So what you see here is what is the most played card is white rares. Then we've got blue and red rares. Then we've got almost close to each other, green and blue rares, and then, it's weird to say, but the red uncommons are over the top of any other form of uncommons. And this is also interesting to note, but the mythics are not really applying to colorless. They are most of the time shared equally against the colored mythics. All right? So what I did then is take this card pool and this time again calculate the intensity breakdown per color. What type of what rarity of what color costs you the most when you want to play Duel Commander? You're gonna spend a lot of money by spending basics for black. This is real. Because you're going to spend a lot of time taking swamps, knowing that they could have any form of rarity. This is the mind investment you're going to put, because these cards are older. Okay, so what is older here? Well, the basics were out in alpha and they have a huge intensity. So what your mind is going to think about, the cognitive cost is that, what do I need to get for my Duel Commander pool? The first answer is basics. Okay, that's good. You got basics everywhere. They are free. You can pay a lot of money for some special basics, but if you just want to play with no money, you can. Basics are free. You got all of them on tournaments and stuff. So basics, of course, we set them aside. But what comes after basics? If there was not these white columns here, what comes after basics? The blue commons is going to be the most expensive and the first thing you have to need. If you want to play everything, all kinds, all colors, all types of decks, you're going to need to go first for blue commons. Then you're going to be going for colorless rares, just like fetch lands, most of them. Then you're going to have to go for blue and black mythic rares. Then you're going to have to go for red common cards, and then you're going to have to spread the rest of your money for every single color rares, and then the rest falls down very far. This is interesting, all right? What I did here is calculate the average age breakdown per identity. So what I did, I need to remember what I did on this graph, is I just calculated how many months on the average were the cards for each color divided and broke down by rarity. So what we play in general is, like you see, the 70 months average basic land. We don't really care about that. But we play, like I said, a lot of old blue commons and a lot of black uncommons. That means that more than probably in addition to the 2023 panel, this card set with the red commons is not getting really improved. Yeah, I mean, this means we are playing things that have already existed for a lot of times, and they have a lot of presence and intensity. Namely, this is about Counterspell and Lightning Bolt, but not only, okay? And when it comes to mythic rares, of course, they are younger, but they are quite intense. So we played on the average blue and black mythics that are a little older, and the younger mythics are the colorless ones. It's interesting too. So what I did too this time is I took the price intensity per color. So how much does it cost this time, not in cognitive thoughts, but in money for your wallet? How much does it cost if you want to get the whole pool of Duel Commander? Well, as you see, as expected, the minimal cost for basics, commons, and uncommons is not really a matter. You see still that the average blue common is 7 times more expensive than the white average common. And then you see a whole strong discrepancy in this graph, and you see that the blue rares are costing you a lot. Like, this is an intensity price calculation, which means it's going to cost you euros by presence. Okay, this is not a price. This is a price by presence. Okay, so what you see is that buying blue rares, then black rares, then red rares, then blue-black mythics, then very far below white and green rares, then very, 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 very far below white, red, and green, and colorless mythics. And this too, I forgot, I think, is going to be the order on which is going to cost you more or less. Okay, so if you want to be, if you have to be, because you don't master everything in life, bound to money, this is going to help you which color you should play. Okay, this is going to help you a lot. This is even going to help you more. This time, this is the average euro per rarity per card. So to play Duel Commander and get the top 1% plus cards, you need to spend on the average 3.5 euros as 15 days ago, for blue, followed by black rares, and then followed by black mythics that are way more expensive than the rest. Like, the black mythics are just approximately twice the price of it on the average white, red, and green mythics. Okay, that's very interesting. And the colorless mythics are very expensive too compared to the rest on the average. All right. So a few community stats that I give you every year. This time I just made a new graph that I like. I've been doing some archaeology. This is the average number of players I found in emblematic and strongest tournaments over time. What you see here is, despite this weird thing due to the COVID isolation period, it's been going very fine for Duel Commander when it comes to tournaments. Doesn't mean people play more or play less. It means that there are more tournaments and the competitive scene is really developing. And I believe this thing is going to be broken down. The 500 players is going to be beaten down. And thanks to the amazing tournament organizers, we're going to have more and more tournaments, and the top tournaments are going to follow this line. I hope so. Why not? So if you ask, I don't know why my map was put in French. I'm using everything in English, but I don't know why. But I think you understand this is a world map, and because I'm French, it puts France in the middle, okay? So this is where people are coming from on the website, on mtgdc.info. Just a little thing, make sure that you understand that the small circles like this one or this one are not representative of the size of the population who visits the website. It's just that if we go lower in terms of circle diameters, you wouldn't see them on the map. So this is a minimal size. The top countries that are interested in Duel Commander for real are still the same like last year's: United States, France, Brazil. Then it's somehow split between 4 or 5 countries. If we just compare with last year and this year, you would see most of the countries have not moved. We've gained over 5% more people, and the top changers are Canada, which is really going top, Italy, which is really interested in Duel Commander this year, and Indonesia, and the topmost progression is Sweden and the Netherlands here. Those are the topmost countries. And of course, the other ones are just a little going down. China is falling down a little, mostly because the statistics have stopped being able to track China. So actually, China is going to be here somewhere, is going up in value, but the thing is we cannot track China presence properly, so everything is going down, and I think Google is going to stop including China in results because it's not significant anymore. When it comes to Facebook, it's just stable. We got more likes, we got a little less people involved because Facebook is going down in value around the world. People like facebook.com less and less, but we still got more audience. And for the first time on Discord, we have a new country appearing, which means there are enough people to be anonymized, which means the United States is taking up. And until last year, France was more than 50% of the people, and now it's falling down to 44%. It's going down even month after month, which is great. And we got a lot of new members coming down, so this is a pretty fresh population. We are going to increase the population on Discord over the next month. So conclusion is we got 5% more visits on the website, which is a lot. 5% per year is really a lot. I know it sounds small, but it's really a lot. Facebook is declining like 7%, but actually the engagement, which is the likes, the reactions, the comment, has doubled since last year. Discord is just cracking everything on the ceiling. Like we got plus 80% this year, and it's going to be increased more and more. And we have approximately 50% more tournaments to just add data for everyone, which is good. So anyway, don't forget, we always have a repository to share where you are, the organizations, the shops and stuff. We have a FAQ if you need to start with basic questions that are not covered by the rules. We have a quick start guide for beginners. We have a way to be contacted if you want to improve our documents. This year, someone contacted me to improve the whole comprehensive rules, to remove a lot of English mistakes, typo and Oxford stuff, when it comes to commas and punctuation. Thank you, whoever you were. That was a great addition to the rules. The person really had the committee. We got the Ask the Committee if you have questions that is not really a short-term questions. Don't ask about why is this card legal or banned, because if we publish your answer 2 months later, the card is banned, and it doesn't make any sense to anyone. So we are always available for interviews. We share your large tournaments. We mostly read everything you write. If you write something down on a very famous website, Discord, whatever talks about Duel Commander, there's a high chance we read you. At least someone in the committee reads you and reported what you said if it is interesting. We got TCG events and MT Top 8 if you want to organize a tournament and host it. We have a proper URL for that. If you want to report tournament top decks, we got MT Top 8. And you can always go on Discord if you want to start bringing your ideas. So this is the part I would just pass to MTG Prime, and I would let the people be here. This is my photography. This is the amazing team of MTG Prime. And that is all. For the finish, I want to have some final thoughts and share them with you. First of all, there is something I need to tell you. Something that is crawling from a long time ago. For the first time, Magic the Gathering Online is going to have Duel Commander as an official supported format or way to be played on its software, which is amazing. Yes. So what it means is that you can play Duel Commander on Magic Online. You need to start there. You need to download and install the software, start getting the cards to bring something, build a deck. As you know, as we saw, we got a pretty stable card pool, so you will soon be able to play everything that is included in Duel Commander. So the Duel Commander integration will be full, with all the rules and all the problems and things you can think about in Duel Commanders. They will do it. It's gonna work. You got a 2x 25-minute play timers for every players in the game. The rules will be synchronized with the official Duel Commander announcements with, like we say, best efforts. Like, we publish on Mondays, Magic Online publishes on Wednesdays. We'll try to make sure they got the new game rule updates before they need to roll out things, of course, and they will be warned soon enough so they'll have time to adapt. And even though they started the league with different game rules, it's fine. The rules will be updated synchronously, which is fine. It's just Magic Online rules. Whatever happens on Magic Online is valid on Magic Online perfectly. Okay, we don't have to tell you about that. So you can also go for tournament practice, and it's a free-to-enter place, best of 3 if you want to have very good games against people you don't know at random, you want to test your decks and stuff. And of course, there will be leagues, so you need 6 tickets. If you're in Europe, which is approximately €7, a little less than €7 to enter a league, you get to play up to 5 matches, and if you start winning 3+ matches, you will get prizes. Yay! So, thanks to Daybreak and the amazing team, this is going to come live on July 2024. They will publish a blog note regarding the details. And the only thing I can tell you is get ready. This is gonna be great. One last word, like I say every year, we still only exist thanks to Wizards of the Coast, who still makes a pretty amazing game 30 years later. We only exist now to Daybreak, who makes Magic Online and maintains the software. We exist to judges, without who you would not be able to have tournaments. And you who play Duel Commanders, and of course all the people on Earth being tournament organizers who activate the DC, who make this go like effectively competitive. Like, you want to think it's competitive, I'm a tournament organizer. I'm going to show you this is competitive, and people joining. This is a mesh. This doesn't exist without any of these people. You know, you can just always look at the committee, but we are nothing without these people. Nothing. So, shouts out to all of you if you recognize yourself. I'm pretty sure 100% of people are here among this population. I want to share one couple last words before I leave this talk out of you. We just recently had 2 people declining their core member roles after a lot of times these are really close friends of mine, people I really do respect and appreciate more than most of the people on this planet. Sylvain And Manuel just chose to resign as core members, and after spending over 10 years, if not plus than over 12 years for Manuel as people in the committee, that is something, that is an idea, that is a feeling that is crossing my mind, which is the somehow end of an era. And I wanted to thank them, just like everyone who's still in the committee. Manuel is still in the committee, by the way, as an advisor. I really wanted you, like right now, watching this at home, to have a great shout out to these people for all the time they dedicated to Duel Commander. Because you can guess it's about 1,000 to 10,000 messages per month with the whole rest of the team, with the people outside and stuff. This is extremely time consuming, and really, I'm gonna miss that era for some reason. But yeah, we're going on, we're moving on, and can't wait to see what's going to be in the future. It's not the only people I wanted to see in the shorts out. This time it's for different reasons. I'm going to try that without being, seized by the emotions. Duel Commander is something that lives. If you read the history note on our website, there is a page named History. You will read the whole history of how Magic, nothing to Magic, to magazines, paper magazines, to Highlander, to some absolutely crazy people in Canada building something named Elder Dragon Highlander, to Sheldon Menry, who's in the picture here, this absolutely great man, to Kevin Desprez, to everyone in the committee, to you. This is a chain. If you just go back in history and break the chain and remove any of the chain links inside that, there's no more chain. And today there wouldn't be no video, no committee. I would be doing something else. You would be doing something else. Maybe we wouldn't even play Magic. Who knows? Sheldon was the first wave of Judge Emeritus, which means they are recognized as their whole career as judges and people who did so well for the community. He wrote several hundreds, if not, I'm sure, more than 1,000 articles on different supports. Regarding Magic, Sheldon was a crazy avid player. He was playing all the time, he enjoyed life, he enjoyed French wine and stuff like that. He was a beautiful person, a really appreciable and involved, engaged, and mind-blowing person. And unfortunately, Sheldon was fighting against cancer for years, and he passed away last year at the end of the summer. This is the last message from Gretchen, his wife, his lovely wife, and as you know, there's a secret layer that's coming only for Sheldon, because they had to do something, in memory of probably who was one of the top greatest people who made Magic the Gathering exist. I'm not going to name the other ones, you know them. It's just not only about Peter Atkins and Richard Garfield and people like that. There are so many people we'd like to thank, but Sheldon was definitely the core linking the cement, building the walls of everything that is related to Commander for ages. Like, really, you got no idea how much time he dedicated to this. I was fortunate enough to discuss on a regular basis with Sheldon. We talked about, of course, committees, rules, things, what to do, what Commander should be, will be, etc. It was always a great discussion, and what you've got on your screen right now, what I blurred out, is the very last piece of conversation I've had with Sheldon at the beginning of summer 2023, a couple weeks before he passed away. And ironically, the last word I got from Sheldon was a huge thanks. So what I wanted to do is pass this thanks out to you guys, to everyone I've mentioned before. So thank you for being here, and thank you for watching this video, and I hope we got a bright future when it comes to Duel Commander, Magic, and the rest. I hope we do the best of what we have, and I hope this thrives and keeps blooming over the years to come. Thank you for watching this video. I will more than probably see you on the next panel, which should be at worst next year. Maybe there's gonna be another panel before, who knows. Thank you very much, have a very nice day, night, whoever you are and where you are on the planet. I'll see you ahead.